Well, hey there, Internet. You've got that funk. This is a video that might catch people a little by surprise, I suppose, because I'm going to be reading some scripture excerpts here. Mostly not Christian scripture. I've got a collection of various different religious scriptures. I prefer reading actual scripture as opposed to books about scripture, and so on, and making up my own mind. And even though I don't believe in God at all, uh, sometimes, I have read things in scripture which I find either moving or just beautifully written, or it's things that give me considerable pause for thought. I actually could read more different things than I have time to read, and I wouldn't want to bore people too much. So I'm just going to keep it to a few things, and I'm also going to read something which isn't from scripture, but I think it applies to this video as well. I just think it's important to recognize, that although scripture isn't true in the sense that it's all made up, like any other literature. Like any other literature, sometimes you can find really good bits in it which are moving, or someone might even call it spiritually uplifting. So anyway, the first one I'm going to read is from my favorite scripture of all time. That's this one, the Abhihuta Gita. It's an obscure Hindu text, and I'm really not going to do too much explaining about this particular one, why I like it. I shall leave that up to you to, determine for yourself. Chapter 1, verse 6, and for a few verses I'm going to read here. There is no doubt that I am that God, who is the self of all, pure, indivisible, like the sky, naturally stainless. I indeed am immutable and infinite, and of the form of pure intelligence. I do not know how, or in relation to whom, joy or sorrow exist. I have no mental activity, good or bad. I have no bodily function, good or bad. I have no verbal action, good or bad. I am the nectar of knowledge, beyond the senses, pure. The mind indeed is of the form of space. The mind indeed is omnifaced. The mind is the past. The mind is all. But in reality, there is no mind. I, the one only, am all this, beyond space and continuous. How can I see the self as visible or hidden? Thus, you are one. Why then do you not understand that you are the unchangeable one, equally perceived in all? O mighty one, how can you, who are ever shining, unrestricted, think of day and night? I love that book. It's pretty obscure and not necessarily easy to get your head around. It's mostly not good reading. You have to read it a few times before you really can properly soak in most of it, or at least I did. Call me dim. But anyway, I hope that meant something to someone else besides me. I was asked by a friend a couple months ago, actually, on YouTube, if there was any parts of the Bible that I liked, and of course, there's lots of parts in the New Testament that I like. But this particular person wanted to find out if there's anything about the Old Testament that I liked, and I actually haven't read the Old Testament from start to finish. I've read quite a lot of it, but I haven't read the whole of the Old Testament. Having said that, there's only one part. I mean, there's some Psalms and Proverbs that I think are, kind of cool, interesting a little bit. They don't really move me. But there is one part of the Old Testament that it's always been pretty special to me. Now, maybe that's because this, basically, the part that I'm going to read here was turned into a song by the Byrds back in the 60s. This is Ecclesiastes chapter 3, and I'm going to start with verse 1. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven, a time to be born, and a time to die, a time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to mourn and a time to dance, a time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away, a time to rend and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. I love that. I think that's beautiful. Um, right, which leads me on to this one. I'm not going to tell you what scripture this is until after I read it. This scripture isn't technically speaking religious, but it is still scripture. Ultimate excellence lies not in winning every battle, but in defeating the enemy without ever fighting. The highest form of warfare is to attack strategy itself. That book is fucking brilliant, and I think it should almost be required reading. The Bhagavad Gita is also a favorite scripture of mine. Um, I haven't got the copy of it that I wanted to quote from, so I'm going to have to use my Hare Krishna copy, which the translation is slightly different. Um, but I'll pretty much do it from memory anyway. Whomsoever offers me with devotion a leaf, a flower, a fruit, or even a little water, this I accept from that yearning soul, because with a pure heart it was offered with love. Now, I am going to talk a little bit about that, why I like it so much. That's Bhagavad Gita, chapter 9, verse 26. And I really find that moving because back when I did believe in God, uh, in my opinion, the Hindu version of God seems an awful lot more godly than the Abrahamic God. Um, and by that, I basically mean the implication of that verse is if you offer your soul to God, God will accept it as long as you offer it with love. To me, that would make a lot more sense than heaven and hell. Just saying. Right, last but not least, I'm not going to read scripture at all. Back in 1980, when I became a Christian partly as a result that I was going out with this girl whose father was a preacher. And it was because of that that I started going to church with them just as a guest. And anyway, after she and I broke up, I did keep going to church for a while, but I went to different churches because it would have been too awkward. But anyways, after she and I broke up, and her mom and dad really had sort of tried to welcome me into the family, and I think they wanted us to get married, pretty much, or thought we might get married anyway, even though I was only 18 at the time we were going out. Anyway, but her mom, after we broke up, I had to pick some stuff up from her house, and her mom had assembled a whole bunch of writings for me. Mostly it's scripture quotes from the Bible that she thought might be appropriate for me to read with all the things that were going on in my life. But there's this one sort of small poem in here that she left for me. And I'll tell you before I read it. It was written by an unknown Confederate soldier during the American Civil War, and it's called Answered Prayer. All right, here we go. I ask God for strength that I might achieve. I was made weak that I might learn to humbly obey. I asked for health that I might do greater things. I was given infirmity that I might do better things. I asked for riches that I might be happy. I was given poverty that I might be wise. I asked for power that I might have the praise of men. I was given weakness that I might feel the need of God. I asked for all things that I might enjoy life. I was given life so that I might enjoy all things. I got nothing that I asked for, but everything that I hoped for. Almost despite myself, my unspoken prayers were answered. I am, among all men, most richly blessed. That's awesome. That's so beautiful. And this one line sums it all up for me. And it's, being given that at that particular point in my life, I asked God for all things that I might enjoy life. I was given life so that I might enjoy all things. Boom. That's great. Anyway, Is there any scripture of whatever religious nature that you find personally uplifting, either on an emotional or intellectual level? Let me know about it down below in comments. I'd be fascinated. This has Got That Funk. Thanks for watching, and may all your ups and downs be ups.